Hi guys, today I'm just going to do a rewatch of Twin Peaks. I'm on episode 2, which is called Zen, or The Skill to Catch a Killer. And it's directed by David Lynch and written by Mark Frost and David Lynch. So a couple of comments before I begin the rewatch. Watching the past couple of episodes has made me realise that I still am pretty infatuated with the character of Agent Cooper. He is such a sweetie, and I also didn't realise how invested I am starting to feel again in the characters' lives. As I say, I'm a big fan of this show, and I've watched it a lot of times since it originally aired, and I've just been watching it for fun and for nostalgia, and watching it like this, and it's really helping me to re-engage with this show and enjoy it on a level that I haven't in a long time. So we start with the scene of the Horns having dinner together, and I think this is the first time that we've seen Johnny, Audrey's brother, and what I think about this is it's kind of normal in everyday life to have families with someone who is either physically or mentally disabled in some way, but we don't often see it on TV. Nothing actually happens until Jerry comes into the scene, but just seeing Johnny there is sort of an apt representation of real life, even though he's sitting there in his his feather headdress, and it's kind of funny, but in the same way it's so ridiculously normal. I love the character of Jerry. I think he's one of my favourite characters. I just find him so funny and quirky. I love the energy he brings to every scene. I mean, that's a lot of that is obviously the actor David Patrick Kelly. He's wonderful in a lot of things. I particularly love him in the Warriors movie. He's excellent in that.
Sylvia.
Clearly Uncle Jerry is the kind of guy that brings a lot of turmoil or upheaval to the family unit, especially when we see Sylvia Horne. You know, she only has to say one word, calls out his name, saying Benjamin instead of Ben. She does not seem happy about Jerry's arrival, and it just seems like a hurricane has come into the room. Okay, so we get this sandwich eating scene, and I've seen people alluding to this scene as having sexual connotations because of, you know, the way that they indulge in the baguettes, and the fact that they talk about relationships with girls at the same time they're eating, and they seem to be almost having an orgasmic experience. So Ben tells Jerry that Laura Palmer was murdered, and the Norwegians left in the same sentence, and we get this kind of comedy music, and Jerry sort of focuses on the Norwegians first before kind of catching on to the fact that Ben had mentioned Laura. So perhaps we get a lot of insight into what makes these characters tick. When you're discussing business, and the idea of a murder is of secondary importance to their financial interests. It seems like the brothers have a very close relationship and have the same kind of personality types. Donna's family seems kind of very upper class and clean living. You know, they discuss going to church. From what we know of James so far, it's almost not the kind of family that you would expect him to feel comfortable around, just because he's slightly off the beaten track. Jerry and Ben are arriving at One-Eyed Jack's. We get this hilarious exchange between Jerry and the server. And of course all of the ladies come out. They kind of look like queens on the front of a deck of cards. It's sort of red and white clothing, which is very ornate. Obviously they aren't wearing very much, but we have Ben romancing Blackie with Shakespeare quotes. Ben is clearly a man who doesn't have any kind of, he doesn't keep it in his pants, put it that way. He has no loyalty to his wife, he has no idea of family values. Audrey's life and the kind of life she has with her parents kind of seems opposite to that Donna has with these two families that we are seeing in this episode. The women that are working at One-Eyed Jack's are sort of being sexually exploited and in some sense abused. It's a very uncomfortable scene when Ben approaches the new girl and she looks terrified, and she's trying to put on this facade of being brave and of being outwardly sensual, but she can't stop fidgeting, and she can't take the expression of fear off her face. No matter how well dressed and sterile everything is, you get the sense that it's sleazy and wrong. So the romance between James and Donna continues, and I think it's a really strong part of the first part of this season. It's sort of a journey for both of them, for Donna, because you get the sense that she hasn't really explored life the same way that her best friend has, and for James because you feel that he was involved in some kind of relationship with Laura that wasn't as pure and true as the one that he is embarking on with Donna. Agent Cooper always looks so happy.
Special Agent Dale Cooper.
You get this slightly disturbing scene of Bobby and Mike as they go off into the woods together in the dark with just a torch, and you get like a first person perspective. It's very dark and all we see is flashes of trees. It feels disorientating. Both of them seem terrified of Leo, and there is also a figure lurking in the woods in a sort of black cloak and mask. Makes Leo seem like he's almost a king of badness, he's king of darkness. He has some kind of support system whom he has arrived with and who is going to act as his backup. So we get this very tense moment when Bobby doesn't know whether Leo knows that he is the man who has been having an affair with Shelley. You get the sense that Bobby is in over his head here, and that out of the pair of them, Bobby and Mike, that it's really Bobby who is the master of that relationship, if you like, with Mike as the follower. At the end of this exchange, Mike implies that he doesn't want anything more to do with this business because it has gone a step too far. So we get this rather amusing slapstick moment when Ed comes into the house covered in grease and disturbs Nadine's what do you call that? She is trying to invent quiet drape runners which are made out of cotton balls, and Ed stumbles all over them and gets engine oil, I think it is, on everything. And we get the sense that Nadine is a very tightly wound person because she manages to bend her exercise machine. Poor Shelley has been abused by Leo, and Bobby finds out and he seems genuinely concerned. Despite the fact that we know he has recently had a relationship with Laura Palmer, he seems genuinely to have deep feelings for Shelley, and he seems very protective over her. So we get Ed and Norma talking to one another, but the funny thing is that the bulk of their conversation they talk about Nadine. So Cooper is setting up some kind of event in the woods with Sheriff Truman, Lucy, Hawk and Andy. He is coming across as rather odd, especially for an FBI agent. we get to know a lot more about Cooper's character in this. He starts to refer to his interest in Tibet, and then we hear him discuss a dream he had and the value he puts on such dreams. This tells you a lot about the kind of man he is, his spirituality and his spiritual intelligence. Seems deeply connected to the inner mind and the soul, and he seems convinced that whatever he's about to do will give him some real life answers to a question that seemingly can't be answered by normal investigative measures. So the idea is, if the bottle is smashed, then the person whose name that they are shouting out is a suspect. Sorry, I'm just laughing at Andy being hit by the rock. It seems like Sheriff Truman is a man who hasn't indulged in this kind of deeper thinking, because he has to reaffirm with Cooper, did you really think up all this from a dream that you had? And when Cooper answers yes, the sheriff is like, well, wow. His expression says that he admires this. Audrey Horne walks into the diner, and this is a very iconic scene for her character, I think. When people think of Audrey, it's often this scene that people think back to. I think if any moment was to sum up the character of Audrey, you know, it would be this moment where she dances. So we get the sense that Audrey has some unresolved issues regarding Laura Palmer and her relationship with her father, and she won't divulge the full information to Donna when Donna asks her what exactly was happening with her father and Laura. It's almost like she wants to bury that in her subconscious. I love Albert Rosenfield. He has such a caustic manner, but he is very, very funny. And we get that moment where Cooper tweaks the nose of the sheriff. Clearly their relationship has developed somewhat. Nadine's obsession with her drapes, whilst it's hilariously funny, I do sometimes wonder, you know, why she has this obsessive compulsive interest in it. You sort of have to think, is it because she has problems in her relationship with Ed? Is she unsatisfied? Does she need to focus her attention away from the relationship on some level? Because clearly she still loves Ed and she still engages with him. The need for this quiet drapes, it's almost like she wants to shut out the world, make it all quiet. Is that what she wants for her own mind? Okay, we get this very disturbing scene of Leland Palmer, and he is sort of trying to hype himself up, it seems like, to bring back some joy to a joyless existence. It's a very traumatic scene. The depth of his grief, where he's just roaring, you know, he's just bringing all that terrible emotion up from the pit of his soul. Sarah's comment, what is going on in this house, is kind of a strange comment, I think. It's, you know, her daughter is dead, her husband is grief-stricken, she is grief-stricken, and yet she uses the term what is going on in this house as if there is something else that we don't know about. It's a really sad scene. Cooper having a dream. The one-armed man explains that he was touched by the devilish one, but that he saw the face of God or something, and he saved himself by cutting off his evil arm. And he explains his name is Mike and the other guy's name is Bob. We get these strange symbols like a circle of candles which are blown out, sort of signifying death and darkness. The little man says that Laura Palmer is his cousin, and Cooper sort of looks incredulous, and he asks the woman if she is Laura, and she says, I feel like I know her, but sometimes my arms bend back. And then the little man implies that the woman who looks like Laura is being less than truthful. The Laura Palmer figure gets up and she seductively kisses Cooper. Cooper seems to enjoy the physical feeling that the kiss gives him, and then he wakes up with a rather ridiculous hairstyle. Cooper is almost in a trance when he comes out of that dream, you know, he's still hearing the music and clicking his fingers. That's the end of the episode. A very Lynchian episode, I would say. When we go into that red room at the end, that puts a slant on the series, I think, that, you know, we've never seen before. It goes into a place of mysticism and surrealism. Clearly the Laura Palmer murder is infused with this. It seems that Agent Cooper, you know, is the perfect man to have been sent to solve this murder because of his personal interest in this spirituality, sense of the existence of a world beyond that which we can see. I thought that was a really good episode, actually. It was completely engaging from beginning to end, and I think it goes into discovering about the characters on a deeper level than perhaps the last episode did, even. So next time I'm going to be watching episode 3, and until then, I'd love it if you would subscribe to my channel, and you can also like this video if you like, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.